Okay, looking at Revelation chapter 13 and finishing out the last two verses, as you know, verse 1 begins with the sea beast, verse 11 then introduces us to the earth beast. Well, in verse 17 and 18, we have a definition of the sea beast. It lets us know who the sea beast is. But here's what I want you, and it's a 666, it's given in a number. Well, that didn't let me know nothing. Well, here's what I need you to understand. In World War II, America had the code talkers. They were given medals after the war was over and after a few issues were taken care of. But there were a number of American tribes that would help with the code talkers. So when you would go into a conflict, you would take the Navajo were the more known ones, and they were the ones on the radio. And you had one who would help the commander to understand what the Navajo was interpreting. They had their own language, the American Navajo language, and they added to that the code of the Army that would fit with what they're doing. For instance, they would call a tank a turtle. So you had to do a couple of things in order to interpret and to break the code of the code talkers. If you were the enemy, you were the Germans, and you never broke the code of any one of the American Indian, the Native Americans. Not a one. Now, what you have in the name 666 in chapter 13, verses 17, here the writer is talking about those who have the mark of the beast. That's the sea beast. I saw one writer, and amazed me, he said this, that it's the earth beast. No, it's the sea beast. And he says the name of the beast or the number of the name. He just told you he's naming the beast. And then in verse 10, he says, here is wisdom, and he that hath understanding. It helps to try to understand what the writer is saying. If you're not a code talker, you're not going to understand what's being said. Well, that means I can't understand it because I'm not a native Navajo. Follow the figure of speech with me here. So here is understanding. Let him count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. He just told you the beast is a man. And he told you, I'm going to give you the name of the man. And he told you the name of the man is in calculating the letters within the name. And it will add up to 666. As you can see from the slide, we have put Nero Caesar up there. It's spelled a little differently. It's in the Latin language. Listen to the languages. Language number one was Rome, the sea beast. Nero is Latin. You use the Latin name to describe the sea beast because the sea beast is Rome. And I'm going to tell you and try to show you that it's Nero. So you're seeing Nero spelt in Latin letters. You'll notice on the far right that it's Hebrew letters. Though the book of Revelation was written in Greek, he's talking about a Latin with a Latin name. And the book that's written in Greek, the book of Revelation, has a strong Hebrew influence. Anybody who questions that comment has not read the book of Revelation. There's symbols all the way through the book of Revelation. The syntax and the grammar and the use of words and the way that words are ordered is more Hebrew. However, it's put into the Greek language. So you have the Greek, you have the Latin, and you have the Hebrew. How do they all fit in? Very snugly. You'll notice the very first phrasing at the top, the number of his name, Gematria. Gematria is a traditional Jewish system of assigning number values to letters. That's what you see on the right of your slide. That's taking the name Nero Caesar, listen to this now, transliterating it into the Hebrew because there's a strong Hebrew influence in the book of Revelation. And then you assign the Gematria use, something that they did. You assign numbers to the letters of the Hebrew. You add that up, or as John said, you calculate it, you count it, and it adds up to 666. Well, I can't quite believe all of that, Ron. I just don't think that works too well. I think we can take any name and go through such a conglomerated and complex way of doing it, and we come out with any name we want, and they do. But what you cannot do is take the Latin name of the sea beast, transliterate it into Hebrew, and use the Hebrew code, be a code talker with a strong influence of Hebrew in the book of Revelation. But in addition to that, you have you might even call it an early fourth century, but I would call it a third century Greek text. I mentioned to you the book of Revelation is written in Greek. Okay, let's use Greek like this Greek text does. You'll notice in the word Nero, you've dropped off the N. Well, in Greek, that's what you do. Well, if you transliterate that into the Hebrew, you'll notice the green on the screen, you drop off the N letter numbering. You subtract 50 from 666 and you have 616. In the Greek text, they write in, instead of 666, they write in 616. No other name is used in such a way. No other event, no other person, no other state, nothing. And only the name of Nero will bring you the 616 and the 666. And John told you, calculate it, and it will calculate unto the name of the man, of the beast, the sea beast. I have pointed out a number of times, really beginning somewhere around chapter 9, that the king out of the abyss is a state, it is not a location. The king out of the abyss is Nero, is Rome, it's Titus, it's Vespasian. Nero was the emperor at the time. Vespasian was his general. Nero died in the middle of all of that. Vespasian became emperor, and there's a fuss with all of that. Not that he didn't become emperor, but he had some problems with three of those emperors. And then his son Titus led the Roman army against Jerusalem. So the sea beast is Rome, and the head of the Rome is Nero at the time the book was written. Why use code? Because you were in the middle of Germans. Did you catch the figure of speech? America used the Navajo, and the code talkers were able to, they could talk in details, and it helped the American army to absolutely defeat the German army. Now, if you have Nero, if you have the Latins failing to use the code that John just told you and is understood, you're not going to come out with a name. You're going to be confused from beginning to end. And if you are a Hebrew, then you're either going to come out with the name and be converted, or you're going to come out with a name and you're going to go to Rome. Why would you go to your enemy? You, as a Hebrew, you're now fighting Rome. You're not going to go help Rome. You are no longer looking at the Christians like you've been looking at them since Acts chapter 2. You're now fighting for your own life because the book of Revelation is talking about your complete and total fall. Well, you're not going to go to Rome and help Rome. If they had, then it would have been detrimental to the people of God.